Have you ever walked into a quiet room and suddenly realized just how loud the silence is? It's in those still moments, when the phone isn't ringing, when no one is asking what's for dinner, when you can hear the clock ticking, that it hits you. That feeling, that emptiness, that ache in your chest that's hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. If you're here, watching this, I want you to know something very important. You are not alone. Not in how you feel, not in your grief, and certainly not in your journey through it. Living without the one you cannot live without. That sentence alone feels like a contradiction, doesn't it? Because if you can't live without them, then how are you still here, breathing, moving, existing? It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel fair. And it doesn't feel like living, not at first. But you are here, and that means something. It means that even though your heart has been shattered, there is still life inside you. It may feel quiet, it may feel heavy, but it's still there. And slowly, day by day, that life can find meaning again. Now let's talk about what that looks like. Because this video isn't just about grief. It's about healing. It's about rediscovering yourself after a loss so deep it shook the very foundation of your world. Whether you lost a spouse, a lifelong partner, a sibling, a dear friend, the pain is real. And so is the possibility of finding your footing again. There's no timeline, no checklist, no magic phrase that makes it all better. But there are moments, small, powerful moments, that help you breathe again. And that's where we'll begin. It often starts with the first wave, the shock. You might have known it was coming. Maybe they were sick. Maybe the doctors had already prepared you. But when it happens, nothing prepares you for that sudden absence. One day they're there, and the next, the world feels dimmer. The chair they used to sit in, their toothbrush still in the holder, a shirt left folded on the end of the bed. Everything becomes a reminder, and yet none of it fills the space. In those first days, you may have felt like a robot, making arrangements, answering calls, accepting casseroles from neighbors. You smiled, nodded, said thank you 100 times. You were doing what needed to be done. But inside, numb, detached, as if life was happening around you, but you weren't part of it anymore. You were just there. That numbness can last a while. And I want to tell you that's okay. Your mind is trying to protect you. You are not broken. You are in survival mode. And in that mode, even simple things like remembering to eat or answering a message can feel like climbing a mountain. Be gentle with yourself in this time. This is your body and your soul trying to catch up to what's happened. Then comes disbelief. Maybe you found yourself still setting out 2 cups of tea or reaching for your phone to call them, only to stop halfway. It feels like your brain hasn't updated your heart yet. This is where things get really strange. Because you're aware, logically, that they're gone. And yet the heart keeps playing tricks. You see someone in a crowd with a similar walk, or you hear a familiar laugh and for a second, just a second, you forget. It's not silly. It's not wrong. It's how love lives on. It doesn't disappear when someone passes. It lingers. It echoes. And sometimes, it catches you off guard. You might find yourself talking to them, out loud or just in your thoughts. Maybe at night, when the house is still. Maybe in the car, when you're driving alone. I've spoken to many people who tell me they still say good morning or good night to their late spouse. Some even set their partner's picture on the table at dinner, just to feel like they're not eating alone. If that helps you, keep doing it. This is your path. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. But let's talk about something else that tends to sneak in quietly. Guilt. Guilt is a tricky one. It can come in the form of, why didn't I notice something was wrong sooner? Or, maybe I should have taken them to a different doctor. It can even come when you find yourself laughing again, just for a moment, and suddenly feel like you've betrayed their memory. That guilt can be paralyzing. But I want you to ask yourself this: if the roles were reversed, what would your loved ones say to you right now? Would they want you to carry this heavy burden on your shoulders for the rest of your life? Or would they want you to find light again, even if it's faint, even if it's just a flicker? The truth is, guilt is a form of love that has nowhere to go. And it's okay to feel it, but it's also okay to release it. I spoke with a man, recently widowed after 45 years of marriage. He told me that every night he would sit at the kitchen table and stare at the empty chair across from him, refusing to touch the seat or move her belongings. "If I let go," he said, "it feels like I'm admitting she's really gone." So I asked him, "But isn't she already gone from that chair? And isn't she still sitting right there in your heart?" That was the beginning of a shift for him. He didn't stop loving her. He didn't move on. But he started to move forward, just a little. He began by having his morning coffee outside instead. Then he joined a local book club, one small step at a time. And that's what I want you to know. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting go of the love. It just means letting go of the weight that keeps you from living the life they'd want for you. At some point, after the numbness, after the disbelief, after the guilt, you might notice something new. A whisper of peace. Maybe it's a morning where the sun feels a little warmer on your skin, or a day where you laugh and don't feel bad about it. These moments don't erase the loss. They don't fill the empty chair, but they remind you that you are still here, and there is still beauty to be found. Now, this isn't a straight path. Some days, you'll feel okay. And then, out of nowhere, a song will come on the radio, and you'll fall apart in the grocery store. That's not failure. That's love. Love doesn't vanish. It changes form. And just like you, it learns to live again. Let's take a breath right here. You've made it through so much already, and you're still here. That means there's more life for you to live, more stories to tell, more moments to treasure, even if they look different now. So, let's keep walking this path together. You might not realize it yet, but every step you've taken, even the ones that felt like crawling, has brought you here. That means something. That means you're healing, even if it's slower than you'd like, even if it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 painful step back. There's a moment many of us come to after the early days of loss, once the house quiets down and the sympathy cards stop coming. It's a strange kind of loneliness. Not just the absence of someone sitting next to you on the couch or sharing the covers at night. It's the kind of loneliness that comes from no longer having someone who truly witnesses your life. That sense of being seen, of having someone who knew your routines, your favorite coffee mug, the sound you make when you're thinking hard. Someone who noticed if you skipped lunch or stayed quiet too long. When that person is gone, you might find yourself wondering, if no one sees me today, do I still matter? Let me stop you right there. Yes, you matter. Deeply. Oh. But it's okay to feel that ache. It's okay to miss being someone's person. And what makes it even harder for many is how the world around us responds to grief. At first, everyone asks how you're doing. They bring flowers, meals, kind words. But as weeks turn into months, people go back to their routines, and that's when yours might feel even emptier. You may start to notice how couples now talk to you a little differently, how some invitations stop coming, how certain friends don't know what to say anymore. It's not because they don't care. Sometimes they just don't know how to sit with someone else's pain. But here's something important to remember. You deserve connection. You deserve joy. You deserve to be invited, included, cared for, not out of pity, but because your presence still brings value to this world. This is when a new kind of challenge begins. learning how to build a new rhythm to your days. For some, this means starting with the simplest things. Making your bed each morning, going for a walk, calling a friend just to hear a voice. For others, it might mean joining a group, volunteering, or taking up something they used to love before their world changed. I once spoke to a woman who had lost her husband of over 50 years. She told me that after he passed, she didn't leave the house for weeks, not even to check the mail. But one morning, she remembered how much they both used to love classical music. So she put on one of their favorite records, opened the curtains, and just sat in the sunlight for a while. "It was the first time I didn't cry," she said. "I just sat and listened, and I realized I was still here." That moment didn't fix everything, but it gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time. Permission. Permission to enjoy. Permission to remember with love, not just pain. Permission to start again. Maybe you're not quite there yet. Maybe you still wake up and feel like there's no real point to the day. If that's where you are, be gentle with yourself. Don't rush the process. But also, don't be afraid to take small steps. Even if your heart's not in it, go to the grocery store anyway. Accept the lunch invite, even if you're not sure you'll enjoy it. These small acts are seeds. They don't bloom right away, but they lay the groundwork for something better. Now, I want to talk about something that's not always easy to admit, especially as we get older: the desire for companionship. That longing to have someone to talk to at the end of the day, someone to share thoughts with, maybe even to sit with in silence. It's completely natural. Sometimes people ask, is it wrong to want company again? Or they worry what others will think if they start forming new connections. Some even feel like they're betraying the memory of their loved one by imagining a life beyond the grief. Let me tell you, wanting companionship is not betrayal. It's humanity. I remember one gentleman in his early 80s who told me, "I still catch myself glancing at women my age, wondering if they'd want to go to a movie or just have dinner." Then he quickly added, "Not for romance, really. Just to talk, to feel like I'm part of something again." He looked down as if he were confessing something shameful. But there is no shame in wanting to connect. In fact, it's something to be proud of, because it means your heart is still open. It means you're still willing to feel, to give, to live. And if companionship isn't something you want, that's okay too. Many find strength and joy in their independence. They rediscover who they are without the role of spouse or partner defining them. They write. They travel. They mentor younger people. They spend time with grandchildren or dear friends. They create a life on their terms. Whether you crave connection or cherish solitude, the key is knowing that either path is valid. And whatever you choose, it should bring you peace. Now, there's something else that often happens during this stage of rebuilding. And that's the moment you start to rediscover your identity. You've gone from being half of a pair to being whole in a new way. That doesn't mean replacing the person you lost. It means reconnecting with parts of yourself that may have been quiet for years. Who are you now? It's a big question, and it doesn't have to be answered all at once. Sometimes the answer comes in unexpected ways. In the new people you meet, the hobbies you try, the places you visit, the causes you care about. Even the way you talk about yourself might shift. Instead of saying we or our, you may start saying I and mine. And that's not selfish. That's healing. One woman I spoke with had been married for nearly 60 years. After her husband passed, she realized she'd spent so much of her adult life taking care of him, the kids, the household. She barely remembered what she used to enjoy. So she tried painting, then pottery. Then finally she joined a local storytelling group. "I never thought I'd speak in front of people," she told me. "But now I get to tell my stories, not just ours, but mine." That's the power of reinvention. You don't discard the past. You carry it with you. but you also give yourself permission to build something new. Sometimes reinvention means creating new traditions. Maybe you always spent holidays a certain way. Now you find new rituals. Maybe birthdays used to be big celebrations. Now you light a candle and make a wish in private. Or maybe you invite someone new into your life to share that day with you. There's no wrong way to do it. What matters is that it feels authentic to you. You're not just surviving anymore. You're starting to live differently, yes, but still meaningfully. And I want to remind you of something. You're allowed to feel joy again. You're allowed to wake up excited for a new day. You're allowed to laugh without guilt, to feel hope again, to want more from life. That doesn't mean forgetting the person you lost. It means honoring them by continuing to live fully, because they were part of your story, but not the end of it. Keep holding on to that. You may not be able to see what's ahead yet, but every time you choose to keep going, even through the tears, you're writing a new chapter. One of courage, one of growth, one of quiet resilience. And you never have to walk it alone. There's a moment, and maybe you've felt it already, when you look around and realize you're still standing. It might not be as steady as before. There may still be days where the ache creeps back in, when something small, a scent, a song, a certain kind of weather, brings it all rushing to the surface again. But in between those moments, there's something else. A calm, a quiet strength, a sense that maybe you're beginning to feel like yourself again, even if that self looks and sounds a little different now. This is what I like to call the new normal. It's not the life you planned, and it may never be the one you wanted, but it's the life you have. And slowly, with each passing week, you've been shaping it into something meaningful. It may start with simple things, making a favorite meal again, not just because it was their favorite, but because you enjoy it too. Walking the neighborhood not out of habit, but because it feels peaceful. Saying yes to lunch dates or movie nights, not just to pass the time, but because you genuinely want company. You begin to notice that laughter comes a little easier, that the heaviness in your chest isn't quite as sharp, that you can talk about your loved one without falling apart, sometimes even with a smile. It doesn't mean you've moved on. It means you're learning how to carry their memory in a way that lifts you instead of breaking you. At this stage, many people describe a shift in how they relate to others. Conversations deepen. Superficial small talk doesn't appeal as much anymore. You want connection? Real connection. You want to talk about things that matter, about what you've been through, about what you've learned, about what's still possible. That's something beautiful that often comes from grief, a kind of clarity. You see what matters most. Time becomes more precious, relationships more sacred. You may no longer tolerate drama or gossip or meaningless noise. You've survived something profound, and it's changed your view of the world. And while this new perspective can feel lonely at times, especially when others haven't been through what you have, it also opens doors. You begin to gravitate toward people who understand, people who don't flinch when you mention your spouse's name, people who can sit with your silence and still make you feel heard. Some find these connections in support groups, others at church, some in creative spaces, a writing class, a choir, a garden club, anywhere that welcomes honesty and heart. These are places where the new you, this wiser, weathered, resilient version of yourself, can feel seen. And if you've reached this point, I want you to hear me clearly. You have done something extraordinary. You have taken sorrow and shaped it into strength. You have honored the love you lost, not by letting it destroy you, but by allowing it to transform you. That transformation might come with new goals, new dreams. Maybe you finally take that trip you talked about for years. Or you go back to painting, or you adopt a dog, or you join that dance class your partner used to tease you about. Maybe you write letters to your grandchildren, telling them everything you wished you'd said sooner. Whatever it is, it's yours now. And sometimes in the middle of all this growth, the grief makes a surprise return. A holiday, an anniversary, a memory that shows up uninvited. And suddenly, you're back in that first week again, tears pouring down your face for reasons you can't explain. That's not a setback. That's love, reminding you it's still there. And it always will be. You don't need to fight those moments. Let them come. Let the tears fall if they need to. Let the memories flood your heart. Then, when you're ready, take a deep breath and step forward again. That's the dance of healing. It doesn't move in a straight line. It sways. It circles. But it keeps going. Now let's talk about something that catches many people by surprise. Peace. Yes, peace. You may not have felt it for months, maybe even years. But one day, you wake up and the pain isn't the first thing on your mind. You stretch, sip your coffee, look out the window, and for a moment, the world feels okay. You feel okay. You might even feel content. It doesn't mean you're over anything. It just means you've reached a place where your grief no longer defines every waking hour, where joy isn't something you feel guilty for, where your loved one doesn't feel lost, they feel carried. Carried in the way you speak, the way you love, the way you show up for others. They become a part of you, not in the way they once were, but in a quieter, deeper way. You stop looking for them in every room because you've started feeling them in your heart. It's in that peace that we often begin to give back. Some people become mentors. Some volunteer. Some write books or start groups for others in grief. You begin to realize that everything you've learned, all the pain you've survived, can now be used to help someone else. And that is purpose. You didn't ask for this journey. You wouldn't have chosen it, but you've grown from it. You've earned wisdom that only comes from living through loss. And that wisdom is a gift to you and to others. So if today finds you smiling a little more, if you're walking lighter, laughing louder, or simply breathing easier, celebrate that. You deserve it. And if today is one of the hard ones, where it feels like everything is slipping backward, know this too. You've been through worse, and you made it. You'll make it again. And wherever you are, whether in pain, in peace, or somewhere in between, know this. You are not broken. You are not alone. You are not done. You are still here. And that is a miracle. So keep going. One breath, one memory, one beautiful step at a time. If this video touched your heart, I hope you'll share your story in the comments below. Whether it's been 1 month or 10 years since your loss, your experience matters. It could be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if you found comfort here, I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share more heartfelt content like this to help you live fully, at every stage of life. Together we are stronger. Together we heal. And until we meet again, may you carry your memories with grace, walk with courage, and embrace the joy that still lives within you. Because life doesn't end with loss. It just begins again.